Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nuganomics with David Toulis.
We are brought to you by Superior Air Systems in the big orange vans around Hamilton County and Chattanooga. That's Superior Air Systems, taking care of your AC and heating unit on short notice as need be. Call 886-6602 for an appointment. Have the man come and rescue you. 886-6602. Make sure also that you get your Tennessee handgun permit class requirement if you're going to carry concealed under the state's authority at Carter Shooting Supply and Range. That's on Highway 58. That's Carter Shooting Supply and Range. There's a great subscription you can have all year at the range there, and have your children go, your wife go, and learn and practice your weaponry there. Also, of course, weapons on sale, all kinds of rifles and shotguns and handguns at Carter Shooting Supply. But I do want to mention the handgun permit class that you should take at Carter Shooting Supply, exercising your rights to be free, and remembering that an armed man is not a man who can be brought to absolute subjugation. He can be brought to subjugation by various means, by his consent, in equity, you might say, by application, but never absolutely, I would suggest, if he is armed. I've got on the phone Chris Butler. Chris Butler is an independent journalist in Tennessee. He's been doing reporting on stories for the past 13 years. He's 38 years old and is running TennesseeWatchdog.org. Now, we talked with Chris most recently when he was working for the Franklin Center. But in December, the Franklin Center cut its funding. It had a donor back out of major funding for that center in Nashville. And Franklin reduced staff, and Chris is now on his own, and he's working under a similar moniker as the one under which he worked with Franklin. And the domain now under Chris's supervision as editor is TennesseeWatchdog.org. Chris, what is tell my listener a little bit about a recent story you've published, and the headline starts "Bad Behavior." What's the bad behavior story about, and why should my listener read it on your platform?
Well, I believe you're referring to the story about the school superintendent.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, actually, that one hits a little close to home for you in terms of geography, because we're talking about, well, your listeners, I'm sure, are all too aware of the situation involving the former Cleveland City School Superintendent Martin Ringstaff, and that sort of tied into the story that I did last week. I looked at this situation, and I looked at the situation involving a man I wrote about around this time last year. His name is Jimmy Long, who is still the superintendent of the Humphreys County school system. Both of these men are affiliated in some way with the Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents. In Jimmy Long's case, he is still the treasurer, and in Martin Ringstaff's case, I believe he was named one of that organization's school superintendents of the year. Well, everyone down there in your area knows about what Martin Ringstaff allegedly did and the circumstances leading to his departure from his position. And in Jimmy Long's case, he was accused by one of his former employees of sexual harassment, graphic conversations at work, and embezzling taxpayer money on the job. Now, I decided to compare and contrast what was going on here with what was similar behavior when teachers are accused of similar behavior. It's been documented that more often than not, they're going to lose their teaching licenses or their teaching credentials from the state. So I decided to examine, what could happen to these men. We know Martin Ringstaff lost his job for this alleged behavior, but the same standards apply to teachers that apply. Do they apply the same standards to superintendents that they apply to teachers? And what I was able to gather and dig up, the answer is no. When I called the Board of Education to discuss these cases, they said, well, they'd never even heard of these two situations, even though in Ringstaff's case, it had been heavily documented all over the state. And Jimmy Long's alleged case had been documented on my website, and they said, well, we rely on the media.
Well, let me ask you a quick question.
Go ahead.
Chris, is the Tennessee Board of Education, is that a state body or is that an association of superintendents? Is that
a state body?
Okay.
Yeah, that's a state body, and they are the ones who grant the credentials for an educator's teaching licenses or some other state-issued education credentials.
All right, go ahead.
So, yeah, decided to compare and contrast what was going on. I found out the Board of Education does not really investigate superintendents to the same extent that they investigate teachers. And I said, look, you remove credentials from teachers, but you don't do it for superintendents. What if there's a situation where there's a superintendent who's well liked by the community and well liked by the board, but he's accused of similar behavior? Suppose there's a situation where the community looks the other way. If it's a superintendent, are you going to do anything? And they said, well, that's an interesting question you pose. We've never considered it. And they didn't really have much of an answer for me. So the thesis of the article was, could this happen to a school superintendent? And the answer is the standards are a little bit lower, and the standards are higher for a teacher. So that was an interesting bit of investigative journalism I did on TennesseeWatchdog.org.
And part of your data came from the Chattanooga Times Free Press, the note in your story about the nearly 450 teachers who, since 2004, have lost their licenses, at least for a time, for some kind of miscreancy or, as you say, bad behavior. Yeah,
I mean, you've heard of these situations where there's a teacher somewhere and it's discovered that 20 or 25 years prior they might have performed in an adult entertainment film, or maybe they said something on Facebook that was a little tawdry, and voila, here comes the State Board of Education to strip these people of their licenses. But if a school superintendent is alleged to be sending tawdry messages on Facebook while at work and discussing school business in these messages and lying to the board, it appears as though this individual is going to be able to keep his teaching license. And in the case of Jimmy Long in Humphreys County, no one knows for sure whether those allegations have any substance to them, but what is known is that the school system had to settle with the woman who filed the lawsuit, and no one really knows for sure what the settlement was, but surely it involved taxpayer money. So this is very much a matter of interest to the public. So this is something they need to concern themselves with.
Remind my listener where among the 95 counties in Tennessee, Humphreys County is, Chris Butler.
Humphreys County is, I would say it's about 90 miles to the west of Nashville.
Okay, and the Martin Ringstaff story, Chris Butler, pertains to text messages that were published, private text messages that were published between Martin Ringstaff and a female, and there was some sort of a sexually excited dialogue there between the two, and apparently the man who publicized this information was the woman's husband.
Okay, I didn't know the latest about where the Twitter account originated, but that's interesting to know.
Well, you've also written recently about TVA, and the story that you published at TennesseeWatchdog.org touches on the expense of TVA's coal policy. What in a nutshell is the coal policy that my listener needs to hear about in your reporting, Chris Butler?
Well, if you go to TennesseeWatchdog.org, you'll see a story I did last week about the TVA relying less and less on coal power and more on alternative energy like natural gas. The problem is alternative energy is expensive. Natural gas right now is inexpensive, but it's a volatile product, which means the price could rise or fall spontaneously at any given moment. And there was a press conference here in Nashville at the Capitol, an Alabama-based organization called Affordable Clean Energy, discussed how the TVA relying less on coal power is going to have an impact on electricity rates in Tennessee and how it will ultimately hurt Tennessee's economy. They stipulated that because of this policy, Tennessee will lose more than 65,000 jobs over the next 10 years, and people's electricity rates will jump 20%, and manufacturing output will decrease by $900 million, and there will be about a $700 million drop in tax revenue for state and local governments. And the people who are going to be most impacted by this affects your region where the Volkswagen plant is. They said that Tennessee's auto manufacturing plants are in the state. One of the reasons they're in the state is because of the low electricity rates. And of course, it takes a tremendous amount of electricity to operate an automobile manufacturing plant. And they stipulated that with higher electricity rates, the Volkswagen, or up here in Nashville, Nissan or General Motors might have second thoughts about doing business in Tennessee, and they may want to relocate to another area. I mean, you saw on the news just last week, there was an air conditioning manufacturer up in Indiana, and they decided they're going to relocate to Mexico because the cost of business in Indiana is just too darned expensive. So the very same thing could happen in Tennessee if electricity rates skyrocket and these businesses decide that the cost of doing business in Tennessee is just not worth their bottom line.
This is David Toulis. Thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. We're the station that covers local economy and the free markets. And our slogan here from 9 to 11 every weekday morning is love your neighbor, buy local. We have the whimsical and wonderfully weak argument that near is better than far and small is better than big and simple than complex. And we like footnotes in 6-point type and down in the small part of the bottom of the page where the fleas fight with scimitar and javelin. We've got personal is better than corporate and physical than abstract. And altogether, these arguments make up the whole concept of Nuganomics, which is lococentric, nugacentric. We could say lococentric if you're from another place. We do welcome you here to town as you're passing through. Your town-centric thinking is what we're trying to understand. We're trying to think more like common people, more like agrarian people, more like people with a connection to agriculture than simply city folk, which is what we are. We condemn ourselves with our own description. There are city folks, cosmopolites. That's you and me. We're very cultivated, right? We're very civilized, and yet we are somehow more savage than we realize. Chris Butler is an independent journalist. He's a bachelor, 38 years old, been 13 years as a journalist and reporter, and now he's really on his own. He had been quasi on his own as he was a writer for the Franklin Center in Nashville, but the Franklin Center has cut staff, and Chris has funds to run for a time. Tell us a little bit about your operation, Chris, as an independent. You were in the nonprofit journalism sector. You're still half in that sector and sort of half out of it. Describe how you, as a kind of taxpayer watchdog in Tennessee, hope to make a go of it as a writer. How do you intend to be sustainable in your journalism operations, Chris?
Well, the content that I plan on doing, is really no different than my mission when I was working for Franklin. And when I think in Franklin's case, I'm a nonprofit, and we were relying on donations from a lot of people out of state because it was part of a national outfit. And the donations from individuals in Tennessee weren't particularly, they were always welcome, but they weren't a crucial part of, the budget we were working on. But now that I am on my own, independent of Franklin or anybody else, I will be relying more and more on local donations from individuals in Tennessee for TennesseeWatchdog.org. And the website itself, we just set it up last week. I hired a friend of mine in Louisiana to help me build it, and he did a wonderful job. His name is Rex Moncrief, and the website is still going through a few glitches, and we've just added a contribute page with instructions on what to do we're probably going to have something at the very bottom on TennesseeWatchdog.org with, people. If you want to pay through credit card, MasterCard, Visa, whatever you have, we'll have that feature. But right now, as it stands, if you want to contribute, I have my email address on the website, and you can reach out to me. And that anything that anyone can contribute. If you like the work I'm doing, if you believe in holding government accountable and investigating waste, fraud, and abuse, and I certainly have a proven track record of accomplishments and making that happen, then please, any and all contributions are certainly welcome on TennesseeWatchdog.org.
Chris Butler is an independent journalist. As we said, this is David Toulis, and you face a difficult future, as I do. I'm a writer, Chris. I write muckraker.com, and it's very difficult to get anyone to pay attention, and that's because on the internet, people expect everything virtually to be free. And so what you have to do is you rely on people who effectively give you the money. They say, I like what you're doing, and here are $50, and I'll give you $50 next year. If you have enough people doing that at small amounts, like maybe $20 a year, even $10 a year, if you have enough people who say what Chris Butler is doing is worthwhile, I will send him some money by PayPal or a debit card or credit card. But the problem is, though, there are not enough of those people possibly to make your operation sustainable. Is there a profit side to your model that you can see yet? I mean, where are you in looking for the profit side as opposed to just the nonprofit take the donation side of your enterprise?
Well, I tell you what, this is a brand new endeavor. This is a brand new experience for me, and I'm sure there are going to be some very valuable lessons for me to learn. I'm very hopeful that beyond the next 6 months, I'll be able to continue going. To help sustain TennesseeWatchdog.org, I'm going to have to rely on people like yourself who have a certain level of expertise and experience in these matters. And I'm very optimistic that the work I'm doing will be sustainable enough, and will get enough of an audience, and will capture donors' attention that I'll be able to keep going. I mean, my philosophy is it's all in God's hands, and I'm very hopeful and optimistic that I'm doing good work. And right now, I'm just focusing on my writing and the fundraising and the donor aspect of it. Like I said, it's going to be an experience, and I'm going to learn a few things, but I'm adaptable, and I just have a lot of optimism that things are going to work out.
What you want, Chris Butler, is that if people like you, let's say on a Facebook page, that they like you also with a subscription, which is to say not just that they get in their email your every report, but they follow what you do and they support what you do by making a donation of appreciation. And so it's a very difficult task that you face. You have fundraising, which again is donations, as you did in the nonprofit work for Franklin Center. But then also you want people to say, okay, I'm worth this, and let me help you find this out. So maybe there could be people in a given town who have the poop, perhaps, on a county government or some company perhaps that's doing something outside the law in that town that would have, and the reporting about which would create statewide interest. And so you have to kind of you have to find donations, but you also want to be paid for your worth by some of your money being in exchange. Is it where the people are either advertising with you or subscribing to you for motives beyond just charitable motives?
Yeah, well, we have TennesseeWatchdog.org has a Facebook page. Just go to the Facebook search engine, type in Tennessee Watchdog, it ought to be the first thing that shows up. Press the like button, and I don't quite know what the rules are on, because we're trying to be a 501c3, and I don't quite know what the rules are on that. I'm going to find out, but I believe we'll be allowed to solicit donations from people through the Facebook page and possibly the Twitter page, and there are other avenues and other vehicles for us to put our name out there and to get attention, and hopefully churn out some really good journalism and make an impact. And as I said, I'm the guy who broke the Tennessee logo story last year, and that was the situation where the state paid something like $50,000 for what everyone agreed was a very crudely designed logo for all the state buildings and all the state, stationery. It's just the letters TN in Times New Roman font with a red background, which is, anyone with a computer could recreate that in less than 2 or 3 minutes. So I gained a substantial amount of national attention for that. And I believe that the people of Tennessee are on board with Tennessee Watchdog's mission of investigating waste, fraud, and abuse in government. And I believe that the donor base is certainly there to help keep me going, and I believe that my work has been appreciated for the past 5.5 years or so I've been here in Nashville.
Well, Chris Butler, thanks so much for joining us here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.